This guy decided to go after his wife with his nanny? And this guy decided to get his revenge for his mom's hit and run after 8 years? Then this lady faked a kidnapping to get sympathy votes while running for mayor? Yeah, we're thinking the same thing. And finally, this lady went on a bender and decided to go to a funeral home to do this. Let's get right to some of the weirdest and wildest crimes, starting with number 5, picking nannies. Brendan Banfield, a husband from Herndon, Virginia, faces charges related to a complex and tragic event. He, along with his family's au pair, Juliana Peres Magalhaes, was accused in connection with the passings of Brendan's wife, Christine, and a man named Joseph Ryan in early 2023. An au pair, if you didn't know, is a young person, typically from a foreign country, who lives with a host family to help with childcare and sometimes light household duties in exchange for room, board, and a small allowance. Kind of like a nanny. As you may expect, the tragic situation ended up leaving a ton of questions about what actually happened the day 2 people lost their lives. One February morning, Juliana, the au pair, left the house, taking the couple's young daughter to school, but returned after realizing she had forgotten the daughter's packed lunch. But when she got back, she saw an unfamiliar car in the driveway. So she called Brendan, who rushed back home. Once inside, the two went to the upstairs bedroom and found Christine seriously hurt, while Joseph Ryan, the man in the room, was holding a knife. Apparently, Brendan then discharged a firearm at Ryan multiple times to protect Christine. Sounds fishy, right? Apparently it did to investigators too, so they dug deeper and began to suspect there was more to the story than a simple act of self-defense. Investigators discovered that a computer in the Banfield home was linked to a fetish website, which catered to various adult fantasies, including scenarios involving power dynamics and role-playing. Investigators found that a profile linked to the Banfield home used Christine's name and featured a photo of her in a swimsuit. However, the nature of the messages exchanged with Joseph Ryan didn't match how Christine's friends and family described her personality or behavior. This obviously raised suspicions that someone else, possibly posing as Christine, was actually behind the communications. Authorities suggested that Ryan may have been lured to the home under false pretenses by someone pretending to be Christine rather than Christine herself being involved. Additionally, evidence suggested that Brendan and Juliana were involved in a romantic relationship, with photographs of the two and Juliana's belongings later found in the bedroom where the incident occurred. After Christine's passing, Juliana even moved into the primary bedroom, placing a framed photo of herself and Brendan on a nightstand. Questions about the couple's actions in the weeks leading up to the event also raised antennas. They were known to have gone to a target range together, and just weeks before the incident, Brendan bought a new firearm. Authorities alleged that when Ryan didn't get taken out immediately after the first round, Brendan directed Juliana to retrieve another firearm to ensure he was taken down. As of the release of this video, Juliana was hit with charges of the second-degree kind for her role in Ryan's passing, but the motives and details of the case remained murky. Brendan Banfield also has multiple charges of his own and will be heading to trial in early 2025. And hey, we're not saying that these two star-crossed lovers are automatically guilty because we're innocent until proven guilty in this country, but things don't exactly sound good for them. But then again, there are framed photos of Brendan and the au pair in the bedroom. Things are just weird all around. We've also seen enough movies to know that hiring a young nanny from a foreign country to live in your house never works out. Number 4. Late revenge. Rhett Michael Barlow, a 22-year-old National Guardsman, was taken into custody for a serious plot that unfolded nearly 8 years after a tragic incident. Barlow allegedly tried to hire a paid triggerman to target the guy involved in a crash that claimed his mother's life back in 2016. Barlow's mother, Michelle Barlow, was driving her minivan when a dump truck, driven by a guy named Donald Calder Jr., failed to slow down and collided with her vehicle. Sadly, she didn't survive the crash. Calder was later charged with a misdemeanor for the incident and received a suspended sentence and probation. For Barlow, though, the pain of losing his mother never faded. Fast forward to November of 2023, Barlow allegedly reached out to hire someone to take Calder's life. On the very same day, he bought 2 firearms and even requested a transfer to a military post closer to Calder's location. But Barlow's plan hit a snag when the person he contacted turned the plot over to the authorities. The arrest happened at Fort Liberty, where Barlow was undergoing training with the North Carolina National Guard. The Army handed him over to the Wake Forest Police, and now he's facing serious legal trouble, including a first-degree felony charge. During his initial court appearance, the judge ordered him to remain in custody with a $1 million bond and undergo a mental health evaluation. Barlow's actions seemed to stem from years of pent-up anger and unresolved grief over his mother's passing. He was only 14 at the time, and the event clearly traumatized the hell out of the poor kid. But was seeking revenge the right path? Some might question whether the justice system's handling of Calder's initial sentencing left Barlow feeling like there was no real accountability. Considering someone lost their life in an accident that should have never happened, did the punishment fit the crime, or did the system fail to provide closure for his family? It's a tragic situation all around, raising questions about the impact of unresolved trauma and the desperate choices people make when they feel justice wasn't served. But what do you think, though? On one hand, it seems like Calder caused an accident that could have happened to a lot of us. It was found that the guy was just either fatigued or distracted, not drunk or on substances, and he also pled guilty. If he's a normal person, you know that ending someone's life like that had to mess him up. So the court, viewing it as an honest but tragic mistake, gave him a light punishment. But on the other hand, Calder was also driving a massive vehicle that requires a special license, so there's another layer of responsibility. Cars are already very dangerous. They're unstoppable hulks of metal that travel at high speeds, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. And dump trucks are even more dangerous since they're probably going to cause more damage than they take. Yet, all the time, people drive distracted and carelessly, as Calder seemingly did in this situation. And really, there should be no excuse for fatigued or distracted driving. Should his punishment have been more severe? Was Barlow justified in his desire to seek revenge? Tell us what you think in the comments below. Number 3. 30 years of proof. In an update to a story we've previously covered, William Woods, who had spent nearly 2 years behind bars and in a psychiatric hospital, was finally cleared of charges he never should have faced. Apparently, someone else had stolen his identity and led authorities down a misleading path that got Woods locked up and institutionalized. It sounds like a nightmare, and it was. The trouble began in 2019 when Woods went to a bank in Los Angeles to report suspicious activity on his accounts. He had discovered that someone had accumulated a significant amount of debt under his name. Trying to set things straight, he presented his social security card and California ID to the bank staff, but the situation quickly escalated. When security questions came up, Woods couldn't answer them correctly. Meanwhile, the person behind the identity theft, this guy named Matthew Kierans, was on the other end of the phone call, giving the right responses and assuring the bank that Woods had no business accessing his accounts. This led to the police arresting Woods instead of investigating further, which is pretty reasonable, right? Woods found himself accused of identity theft despite being the victim. The charges led to his conviction in 2021 with a sentence that included both jail time and a stint in a psychiatric hospital after being deemed mentally incompetent. But the truth was much wilder than anyone had initially realized. Matthew Kierans had been living under Woods' identity for over 30 years, ever since they crossed paths at a hot dog cart business in Albuquerque in 1988. After running away from home as a teenager, Kierans adopted Woods' identity to evade legal trouble, including a stolen car incident. He built a life using Woods' name, working various jobs, obtaining loans, and even starting a family. At one point, he managed to secure a well-paying remote position as a systems architect, earning over $700,000 while living in Wisconsin. To sustain the ruse, Kierans utilized false documents, including Woods' birth certificate, which he had acquired through Ancestry.com. Woods' journey to freedom was a grueling process. After being deemed mentally incompetent to stand trial in February of 2020, he was transferred to a psychiatric hospital, where he stayed for 147 days. This was part of a larger 428-day incarceration, which included time in county jail. Then, in March of 2021, Woods pleaded no contest to the charges to secure his release, with the court crediting his time already served. Despite his release, the conviction remained on his record, and he was ordered to stop using his own name, adding another layer of confusion to his struggle to reclaim his identity. Unwilling to accept that outcome, Woods relentlessly pursued justice. He filed reports, contacted financial institutions, and reached out to law enforcement agencies trying to prove that he was the actual victim of identity theft. His tireless efforts finally paid off in early 2023 when he tracked down Kieran's employer, the University of Iowa Hospitals, and reported the case to their security team. This led to a DNA test that confirmed Woods' true identity, ultimately paving the way for his wrongful conviction to be vacated. Finally, in early 2024, a judge dismissed Woods' charges, calling the case Kafkaesque due to their absurdity and complexity. It's crazy as hell to think that this poor guy was just checking suspicious activity and ended up getting locked up by a guy who ended up living out a pretty successful life in his name. It's really scary to think all his rights and everything were taken away from him for years because of someone else. It makes you feel bad for Kieran's wife and family too, who had no idea what was going on. Number 2, election forecast. Sabrina Belcher, a rapper and candidate for mayor in Sumter, South Carolina, because why not be both, landed in serious trouble after attempting to pull off a ridiculous stunt to boost her campaign numbers. Police charged her with conspiracy and filing a false police report, saying that she staged her own kidnapping in a desperate bid to gain sympathy from voters. The incident played out live on Facebook, where Belcher appeared to be under duress while driving, with a man in the car threatening her and smashing her vehicle's windows. The man, later identified as Christopher Eady, made it seem like a rival candidate was behind the chaos, because you know how serious politics can get in mid-sized cities. After the live stream, Belcher reported the incident to authorities, claiming she had been a victim of an attempted robbery and had no idea who the person was. However, as police dug deeper, the entire story unraveled. They discovered that the supposed kidnapping was actually a setup planned days in advance. Eady, who also faced conspiracy charges, told investigators that Belcher had hired him to stage the whole ordeal. The plan was to create a dramatic scene that would attract attention and sympathy, while also casting suspicion on her political opponents. Belcher eventually confessed, admitting that the goal was to discredit her rivals. The fallout from the staged incident was significant. Police criticized Belcher for wasting valuable public resources, including law enforcement time and medical services, all of which were deployed based on the false information. The police chief called the scheme an act of personal gain that disrupted the community and misled authorities who could have been handling real emergencies. Despite the backlash, Belcher continued to run for mayor, undeterred by the mounting controversy. She framed herself as a community activist, emphasizing her role as a volunteer firefighter and her commitment to improving local safety, even advocating for around-the-clock police presence during school bus hours. However, the scandal cast a pretty long shadow over her campaign, with pretty much everyone questioning her credibility and judgment. Obviously, she didn't win. Her financial troubles didn't help her situation either. A GoFundMe page for her campaign, because of course she had one, raised only $25 out of a $10,000 goal, even after nearly a month. The staged kidnapping seemed to have the opposite effect of what Belcher intended, apparently surprising no one but her, which is hilarious. It's like even her friends and family couldn't be bothered with her nonsense anymore either. It's wild how badly Belcher must have really wanted to be mayor though, right? Maybe we're the weird out of touch ones here, but honestly, are you even aware of who the mayor of your city is? We couldn't pick our mayor out of a lineup, let alone their rivals. And we live in a city that's slightly larger than Sumter. Who knows though, maybe we should start following more local politics. It sounds like they might be a bit more exciting than we've always thought. Number 1, on a bender. Patricia Sierra got herself some serious charges after a strange burglary at a Las Vegas funeral home. Around 3:30 a.m., a passerby stumbled upon a disturbing scene. A casket was placed outside a funeral home with the body lying on the ground nearby. It seemed as though the casket had been wheeled out from inside and then abandoned, while the body itself was left exposed on the landscaping near the building's entrance. Paperwork found beside the casket indicated that the deceased's viewing had taken place just the day before, making the situation all the more bizarre. The authorities were immediately called, leading to an investigation with the obvious question, what the hell happened? Surveillance footage showed a person breaking into the business by smashing a front window, unlocking the door, and entering the viewing room the night before. The individual then dragged the casket outside, making multiple trips before leaving the scene. Police identified the suspect as Patricia Sierra a few days later. In an interview, Sierra confessed to having no memory of the incident, attributing it to her struggles with substance misuse, which she said often caused her to black out. She admitted to previous break-ins using similar methods, such as throwing rocks through windows. While speaking with officers, she expressed remorse, insisting she hadn't meant to cause harm. She also revealed that she had consumed 6 beers before the break-in. Charged with burglary, grand larceny, and disturbing human remains, Sierra's case moved forward with her bail set at $11,000. It's wild that for whatever reason, breaking into a funeral home and just bringing stuff outside made sense to Patricia at that time. She's brave too, because there's no way we'd be breaking into a funeral home by ourselves in the middle of the night. Everyone knows those places are haunted. Click to watch one of these next videos.